Welcome to the Anonymous Andrew podcast. Life and the choices we make. The choices other people make. Why we choose to ignore the red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, cheating, addiction, mental illness, and much more. What role do they play in relationships? Follow me each week as we discuss these topics with anonymous guests and experts to hopefully become better humans, resulting in better choices. Like I say, been there, still doing that. Now on to the show. Anonymous Andrew here with you once again. So this episode we have today is on Narcissistic Personality Disorder. I told you folks I'm going to dissect these traits and these people that we get involved with to the point where it's like an autopsy. Anyway, this guest is a coach. She coaches people who are on the other end of a narcissistic relationship. They get out of them and they're empty and they are looking for help. And she coaches them. And she's also a survivor of a narcissistic 17-year marriage. So she tells her story. So I enjoyed this interview and I hope you do too. Hello, everybody. Anonymous Andrew back with you with another episode. And this is more like a follow-up episode. A couple of episodes ago, I did a show on Narcissistic Personality Disorder. And that was with the guests that treated narcissistic adults who survived narcissistic parents. Today, we have Kylie Borg. And Kylie Borg was former corporate coach, and now she does personal coaching for survivors of narcissistic relationships. Kylie, would that be correct?
Yep, that's correct. Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So this is Kylie Borg, and I want to thank you for joining me. Kylie, I asked this on my last guest, but I because I love this term narcissism. It happened to me. I was in a narcissistic relationship. But what is your definition of either NPD or a narcissist?
Sure. And look, first things first, I'm not a doctor, but I see narcissism on a spectrum. So there are a lot of people that have narcissistic personality traits. Those people are not what I call narcissists. So they have traits of narcissism. They can usually be a bit selfish, put themselves first. And often you see that in leaders in organizations and things like that as well. It's almost part of their job that's made them successful. Then, excuse me, where I'm coming from, and with my own personal experience as well, is the other end of the spectrum. So I can't say that my ex had narcissistic personality disorder because it wasn't a diagnosed thing. And it's quite known that a lot of people that show narcissistic traits wouldn't go and actually get themselves diagnosed with the disorder. They might not even know and have that awareness that that's actually how they're behaving. It's more the recipient of it that has that level of awareness of it.
Right. And I've often said that a narcissist would not walk into a therapist's office and say, I'm a narcissist, I need help. It just doesn't work that way. Right. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. And what we're seeing at the moment is that term being thrown around a lot.
A lot.
And I understand that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not minimizing it, especially for those people that have been traumatized by a narcissist in their life. So I think that's where, the line gets a little bit blurred. And I know for myself, and I've seen, there's a lot of podcasts out at the moment about narcissism. And I have seen titles like, I'm a narcissist and so is my friend, and they're doing a podcast. And it's like, wow, that kind of hurts me a little bit because it's like, There is a spectrum, and I get it. But I'm pretty sure that the narcissists I know would never ever say that.
No, a narcissist is not going to get on a podcast and say, I'm a narcissist, and yeah, exactly.
Yes.
They're not self-aware. They're just not
Yeah,
self-aware.
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about, there's so much I want to ask you. I guess how you, let's start with how you got into your coaching. Do you want to tell a little bit about your story?
Yeah, no problem. So I have been coaching for many years. So I actually started coaching when there was probably not a lot of coaches around, and I fell into it with my work. It was quite a natural step for me, working with the clients that I had, and it was being requested of me, which was great. But once my relationship ended, and once I went through my own recovery and my own healing, I came to the end of, I'll say the end of that. It's still, it's an ongoing thing. I don't think you're always better. I kind of went, wow, I actually think that I am in a good, strong position to support people that have been through exactly what I have been through. And I wish I had have had that. So I was in a relationship for 17 years, right? Yeah. So there was a lot to unpack at the end of that. And regardless of the unpacking, it was also about, what do I do now? Like that process itself was very, very challenging, because, as you know, it's very difficult to distinguish between what's true and what's not.
Thank you.
Thank
you. To the, I don't want to say lay person, but to the person that might be listening who's never been a supply or a survivor or a victim of narcissistic personality disorder, when you come out on the other end, I'll speak from my experience, they strip you of your dignity, your self-respect, you're an empty, I was an empty shell when it was over, and there was a big empty cloud, a hazy cloud over my head, and I was just, my hands were up like, what just happened, and how did it happen? So go ahead, continue on. So you're.
Yeah, and I absolutely second that, Andrew. So, I didn't end my relationship. My husband did. I didn't, and I'll be very honest, I did not know that I was in a relationship with a narcissist until I was on the other side of the marriage and went, what is this that I'm feeling? What is going on here? I couldn't make sense of anything. And it was from there that, and I did see a psychologist and go through the whole, explored what happened during the marriage. And one of the biggest things that came up for me was, and I used to say, I really didn't like this cliche, I just don't know who I am anymore. I need to go and find myself. I used to really, I never liked that cliche until I was in it myself, and I went, okay, cliches are there for a reason. This is real. This is happening to me now.
Yeah.
What am I going to do about it? And you don't feel like you have the answers because you haven't been thinking for yourself for quite some time.
No.
Yeah. It's tough, right?
It's, there was this just big question mark. Like what, like I said, what just happened? My relationship ended almost, it was a mutual thing. I just walked away finally. I've noticed many narcissists will come back. Now, did in your relationship, was it a marriage?
It was a marriage, yes.
Did he ever try to come back to you or
No. So we did try to work things out for a while, but what I also realized there was only one of us trying to work it out.
yeah.
So it
And that was
became
you.
a bit more of a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of it, you kind of go, I was the only one trying here.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that?
Yep.
Yeah. Which then just, buries you a bit deeper.
Mm.
So yeah, it's I guess one of the things for me was when you get told often enough there's something wrong with you,
Which I
you
did.
really do believe it.
Yeah.
You really believe it. So when all of a sudden you're on your own and you've been thinking there's something wrong with me, it's very hard to see the light from there. And that's where the work is. Yeah.
So where did you begin to start that journey?
Yeah. And look, I remember because I was doing some coaching and consulting ad hoc during the marriage, but I was primarily full-time mum. And when the relationship ended, I needed to find a job. And at first I was very much, I can't find a job. I haven't been working full time or been doing what I, should have been doing during this time in order to make me employable. I didn't believe in myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered before the marriage, I was quite happy to move from job to job purely because I backed myself 100% that I can leave this job because there's something better for me.
Good.
And I would find that something better.
Good.
So I started tapping into, without going back, I wasn't interested in going back to what I was, but I was interested in tapping into who she was back then and what do I want now? And can I become that? Where am I now? What do I want to be? What do I need to do to get there? And having a support network was really big. However, I hadn't told anybody what I had been through. So that was tough. That was tough. Firstly, admitting it.
You're full of shame. You're full of shame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How could I have let this happen?
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. So once I could admit it, that was probably my biggest step to moving forward.
I think we skipped over one thing, and I didn't ask. I think I said to you I was going to ask you this. What is your definition of narcissism?
Okay, so yeah, we talked a little bit about I see it as a spectrum, a personality trait. Again, not a doctor, so my personal opinion is that a narcissist is someone who sees themselves as superior. Right. So not just putting themselves first and not just taking over conversations and making it about them, but they truly believe that they are superior, that they are better and they are better than you. So what often comes with that is the belittling of you. And
Correct.
as you used a great word, kind of stripping away. So they start stripping away at you, which then lifts them up even more and reconfirms for them that superiority. Then that whole process of manipulating and gaslighting and I see all of that as absolute traits of a narcissist. And I guess where it comes in a little bit different when I talk about someone that has narcissistic traits and someone that is a narcissist is that person stripping down people in order to make themselves superior in a way that is destructive and abusive. I kind of feel like that's where that line gets crossed. Like people put themselves first, especially in a work environment. They might kind of, play political games and things like that. But is it abusive? Is it causing trauma for the other person? It's more than just it is more than, I won't say just bullying, it is more than bullying.
Yeah.
It
A lot
does
more.
take it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I just had a question for you. Sometimes I write them down and sometimes I don't.
That's okay.
Um, so they strip you of they literally, I think it was more of a statement. They literally
Yep.
will strip from you they suck the energy out of you. Because a lot of times you don't see it coming.
That's right.
You could be out on a day trip or on a night evening and you're having a good time, and all of a sudden they will either start an argument or they will
Yeah.
say something, or you will see something that doesn't make sense and you will ask them about it, and often they will twist it around, and this is the part that confused me. When I got out of this relationship and I look back like you, didn't know what happened. I was very reluctant to put any label on her. I just did not know. During the relationship, there were a couple of labels thrown around. We had gone to couples therapy. Borderline personality disorder was one label that she might have been diagnosed with. And she had a very horrible childhood and toxic parents. And
Sure.
but never once did I consider her a narcissist until I started this podcast and did the research and started having guests on and experts and so forth. And the common denominator that I'm hearing is the gaslighting, the manipulation, the cheating, the superiority, the belittling. Like you said, they put you down. And I was always put down, and I was always told that if I didn't treat her a certain way, that she will find somebody who does. She wanted to be treated this way, and if you don't treat me, and she literally said those words to me. If you don't like it, there are plenty of men waiting to take your place. She literally said that to me one night.
Wow.
Yeah. So wow, that's what everybody says. Wow. So So today I'm still being cautious because I don't want to label people because I'm not a doctor and I'm not an expert, but she certainly shows all the characteristics or traits of a narcissism. So, okay. So you got out of this relationship and you started helping people in the corporate world. You said?
So I was still continuing that until, so it was only a couple of years ago that I went. So even with, this is the thing about coaching, I guess, it's very difficult to only keep it at a certain level. So anyone that comes to a coach really is also talking about themselves personally. So there was always that element in my coaching as well. Now I spend more time focused on the recovery and the personal coaching side of things. I still have a job that I'm a change leader in an organization, which involves lots of coaching as well. But this side of it for me is everything on the personal side.
So what is some of the first steps one can do? Let's say that I reached out to you. Let's say 7 months ago, I heard of you and I reached out to you. Where does one begin to recover, heal from this type of abuse?
Absolutely. And I think, Andrew, you've already done a really big step, which is acknowledging that is what is your truth. So, and, I know that's another thing that's out there a lot at the moment is know your own truth. But there's truth to that. So if you can't actually acknowledge that is part of who you are and what you've experienced, you're going to find it very difficult to move on and to heal and to take steps in the right direction. So step one is really exactly what you've done. Acknowledge that is what has happened to you.
Okay.
From there, so then it does depend on your situation. So I still co-parent with my ex. So I can't I would love to have a boundary which says, I don't need to be in contact with this person anymore. What do I need to set that up for me to be successful with that? So I can't do that. But what I learned over time, it did take me quite some time, it doesn't mean that I can't set boundaries. I wasn't used to having boundaries. Right? There were no boundaries.
No.
So, none.
And even if
So,
you try to establish boundaries, they break right through them.
absolutely.
At least they did. She did in my case. So
yeah, absolutely. And it is very, as you said, it's very difficult to set boundaries with someone that is always right.
yeah.
Right. So, and that was one of the first things. Once I knew that my ex was a narcissist, is a narcissist, I could then at least go, step one, stop arguing with him.
Yeah.
Right? Stop trying to get him to see your view and understand you, because it doesn't get anywhere. No. And then once you bite a bit, it's like you're feeding it. So
that's what they want.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they love
they
that.
love
They want
that.
that.
And and I remember my ex saying once, because I did bite, and he's like, oh wow, this is great, let's go. I'm like, oh no. It's like, no, I'm taking that back now.
It's like feeding raw meat to a lion.
Yes.
It's what they want.
Yes. But without the awareness, so I would never have been able to do that before. So that's when you can start going, okay, now I know that, I can start putting in those boundaries to make it better for myself. So one of the big things I did was know and understand what my trigger events were. So for me, just the sound of the phone ringing after 8 o'clock at night was a trigger for me, because that generally meant I'm getting a call about I've done something wrong, I've said something, it's not good. It's not going to be good.
Yeah.
So the first step, and this was progression for me. So this is when I talk about one step at a time and your next best step, it's what can you do in this moment? You don't have to take the big leaps and bounds, because often that's a bit more challenging to do. You can take a little step at a time to meet what you need right now. And then over time, you will have achieved what you set out to achieve. So for me, one of the first steps with the trigger event with the phone call was I would answer, but I would say very little. So difficult, but listen, very little response. And if it was something that I disagreed with or wasn't quite true, instead of biting and instead of defending, I used to be quite defensive because I felt like I was always being attacked. Yeah. I would say, okay, I'm going to have a bit of a think about that. I'm going to call you back later. So I needed to shut it down. So don't respond. What can you do to shut it down? They don't necessarily like that though. They keep going, keep going. So for me, again, I'm going to call you back later. I just need some time to think. I'm going to call you back later. I'm going to hang up now. So, and I've mentioned this to someone before. I always feel bad. I would never hang up on someone. But I needed to hang up. So the best thing I could do for myself at that time, because I couldn't bring myself just to cold-heartedly hang up, is announce it. So that's the best I could do at the time. I'm going to hang up now. And then I would hang up, and I felt like, fair warning, I said I was going to do it.
Would they call you back?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So the next step for me was don't answer.
No.
So you call back when you are ready.
Right.
You don't need to answer. Call back when you're ready. So get yourself to a place that's calm. Think about what's been said. You can call back tomorrow. Don't call back tonight. Make the boundary that's right for you. And then that shifted for me even further. So then it was, you don't need to answer the call to begin with.
Wow.
So if my kids are home, there's pretty much nothing that I need to worry about.
Right.
So
They're safe
do I
with
need,
you. Yeah.
they're safe with me. So do I need to answer the phone? Probably not. And then, you would justify and go, well, but I'm really close to his family and friends. What if something's happened to them? And it's like, okay, now you're stretching it. Yeah. So don't even answer the phone, especially if it's at night. Tomorrow you can call and say, hey, what's happening? And again, it's about your approach and you taking back some of that control so you don't feel like it's all been taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really big for me. The other thing is about knowing what I wanted, right? So I hadn't thought about that for such a long time. I was in my role as mum and wife.
17 years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and I used to be very clear on that, very, very clear. So for me, it was very much, oh my God, I have to do some work on that because I actually don't know. And is what my initial thoughts about what I want, are they my thoughts or are they his thoughts?
Mm.
So separating yourself from that, and you do have to dig quite a bit deeper for that. You might not know, and that's okay to not know, but give yourself the time and the space and the support to be able to find those answers. Because it's from there that you can start going, well, I now know what I want. I now know where I am. What do I need to do to get there? And again, we're not talking about leaps and bounds. We're talking about little steps. What can I do today? Yep. What can I do in this moment? So if you're caught in a moment, me personally, I'm an overthinker. Do you get in my head? Yeah. So catching yourselves in that moment, especially if it's negative, especially if you're reliving the past and going, to stop for a moment. What's one thing that I can do in this moment to feel just a little bit better?
That's good.
Yeah.
Because
that was really important to me.
I did this. I did what you did. I'm an overthinker.
Yeah.
So I would I could be driving or I could be whatever, cooking or something. And I have some moments and my thoughts come in and I would drift back into a moment that might have happened a year ago because I got triggered. I'm cooking and we were cooking one day and she got mad at me, and I say, what could I have done differently? And, but I think you're right. Don't get caught up in those thoughts.
Yes.
What can I, so that's the beginning of the journey of healing. And how do we start to build up our self-confidence? Because I'm lacking in that right now. Some people might say, well, look, you're on a podcast and you're broadcasting to the world. That's innate in me. I was brought up a broadcaster. A lot of people don't know this, but I was a DJ in college and blah, blah, blah. And I don't have stage fright. I can get up in front of an audience, but inside I feel hollow because she sucked everything out of me. How do we begin to repair that?
Yeah. And I think this is definitely something that's unique to everybody. So it's being able to tap into, so this is where I will say you can tap into your past and go, how did you used to feel? What did you used to do that made you feel confident? Mm-hmm. What did you used to do that showed your confidence? And tapping into those little things, would that work now? Does that work now? If not, what else? So it's quite the analogy of peeling back the onion, right? Mm-hmm. So very difficult to take your first answer there. So like, as you said, most people will kind of go, well, you must be pretty confident. You're talking through a microphone and, but that's natural to you, right? So that's your foundation. So then we start looking at, well, where is it that you can feel your confidence is actually lacking? What is it that you're not doing because you don't feel like you can, and start unpicking that.
And I can give you an answer to that.
Sure.
My fear, or where I lack confidence, is being alone. You know, there are a lot of people who like alone time. I've even heard married couples say, you know, we need alone time. I was codependent. I needed her around all the time. Today, I find it difficult to be alone because I'm used to being with somebody all the time. I had a pattern of getting in and out of relationships. If one ended, I jumped right back into another one. This is the longest I've been single. I've been single now 7, maybe 8 months.
Yeah.
In my adult life, this is the longest time I've been single. And I found myself, what am I going to do with myself now? But this podcast is one of the things that I said I can occupy my time. So, but what would somebody do if they found themselves alone and afraid or scared, or think that they may be alone the rest of their lives?
Yeah. And to be honest, I was there.
Yeah.
So I went from, as I said, a full-time mom to all of a sudden being the only person in the house. And it was like, hang on. Where are my children? Where is my family? This is not what I had planned. And that was tough. So I used to fill in all of my time. I used to just fill it in because that's all I knew how to do. So it was go out with friends, get out of the house. I used to exercise a lot. Like, I have to admit, probably a bit of a crazy amount. But that was my thing. It's like, well, I can't have downtime because then I'm just going to think. And overthink and drive myself a little crazy. So I started filling in the time with everything I could to distract me from the situation. And then I went, hang on a second. Is this actually how I want to be? Is this how I want to spend my time? And it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't at all. No. But it's hard to firstly acknowledge that. And secondly, as you said, so then what am I supposed to do? But for me, it was about, again, what is important to me right now. So I did get a job. I still went to the gym, but it wasn't obsessive, right? So I switched from that obsessive must fill in my time mode to what can you now do that makes you feel comfortable enough to be on your own? And I did it slowly. So it could be as simple as, it sounds really, really basic, but is there a TV show that I like to watch? Is there a book you like to watch? Is there a game you like to play?
Right.
Or even talking on the phone as opposed to having to physically be somewhere. So be in your house on your own, but finding something to do. And it sounds really, really simple.
And it is.
It is. But if your mindset is not there yet, it can be one of the hardest things to do because you start going a little crazy.
Yeah. And you're not used to it.
No.
I found one of the things that happened to me in this relationship was I don't know whether she did this on purpose or not, but she separated me from my family. And And I don't know. I got to be careful how I say this. I don't think she set out to do that, but I was so, whether it was in love or infatuated or codependent, I completely forgot about my friends, my close network friends, and my family. I have 3 adult boys and 2 grandchildren. And as a matter of fact, my second episode is all about that. I completely forgot it. Last year, while I was still seeing her, I forgot my grandchildren's birthdays. And boy, did my family give me hell for that.
Sure.
So now with this free time, I'm reconnecting with the people in my life that either she separated me from or I chose to separate from. and that's fulfilling. And just to give you an example, yesterday, every year, there's two sons who live very close to me, and one is on the other side of the country. But every year we go to see a baseball game. I'm near New York City, and we go see one of the baseball teams here. And for the last 2 or 3 years, I didn't go with my boys. And yesterday, I finally got 2 tickets to see a game in the next couple of months. So it's things, little things like that. Yeah, but
well done. That's so good.
The little things that you can do, which is something you would normally do. I'm a father of boys, and when I was when they were kids, I took them to baseball games, and as adults, we went to games. But when I was in this relationship, I did not. It was like I had blinders on. I did not see anybody else.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And again, as you said, it's the small things that actually make a big difference. So it sounds simple. It is difficult to do, though, if you've come from that experience. But all you need to do is start small. Just start, though.
And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You're not going to die. You're not going to. This is a cliche. You're not going to die from loneliness.
Yeah.
You know. Discover yourself. Discover what.
Yes. What, true.
Yeah, I'm finding out things about myself, and I'm 63. I'm finding out things about myself I never knew.
Yeah.
So,
that's amazing.
So, Kylie, tell us a little bit about your specific practice or your coach. So, are you work independently, or you work with the foundation, or you work independently?
No, I work independently. Yeah. Okay. So. You can find me at kylieborg.com.
Okay.
And as I said before, my specialty is really working with people that are recovering from narcissistic or emotionally abusive relationships.
Survivors.
Yes, that's right. So I offer a program. It's an 8-week program where we work one-on-one to navigate through that recovery process. So we do dig deep on where you are now, what you want to do, what you want to be, what does that look like, which again, as we talked about before, that can sound quite simple, but when you're recovering from that experience, you have to be able to separate what's true for you, not what's true for the other person. So that's quite a process in itself. And it's through that over a number of weeks that we do go through finding what that is for you and navigating the steps bit by bit so that, a few months down the track, you can look back and know that things are different for you now. You might not be there yet. To be honest, you're probably not going to be there yet, but you're on the right path. So the hardest thing is usually taking those first steps because you don't know where to begin. You don't know how to sort through your thoughts. We're often reliving the past. I don't know about you, but I just, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Over and over, like
over and over. Yes. So putting steps in place to help you to let go of those moments.
Do you help the survivors? By the way, I think we should put this out there.
Yeah.
We're not victims of the person on the receiving end of a narcissistic abusive relationship. I used to consider myself a victim, and I no longer think that way. And I was talking to Kylie before we began the interview, and I said, "Is victim the right word?" And she said, "No, we're survivors." And I like that. That's the way to put it. Do you teach the survivors how to establish boundaries? Like, let's say I find a woman in 6 months and I start dating her, and I want, whether she's a good lady or not, I need to. I don't have boundaries. I think, like you said, you didn't have boundaries. How do you?
Yeah.
I don't know where to begin to establish a boundary. You teach that?
Yeah. So as a coach, I fully believe that my clients actually have the answers, right? They're in there somewhere. It's my job to help you find them and dig them out, right? So what I offer my clients is my own experience and the knowledge that I have gathered over the years from my own clients as well as my own experience. But first things first, what I like to do is tap into you. So my number one job as a coach is to support and champion you. So if I start going, well, this is what I do, just do that, I'm no longer putting you first.
Good.
And that's, that's what I do.
I like that.
Yeah.
Kylie, I'm going to put all of the information, your little bit of your bio and all of your contact information, where they can reach you, how they can book a session with you. You did mention something earlier. You want to offer my audience something?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you jump onto my website, you can book a free discovery call. That's just a 30-minute chat to really get a bit more of an understanding of where you're at, what you want to do. And then if you book into the program, I'll give you 10% off the program cost. What I will also say, if you can't already tell from my accent, I am in Australia, so I'm in Melbourne. Now, the times that might show available might not work for your time zone. So I do encourage you, even if you book in a time and then write that this time's actually not suitable, I'm in this time zone, because it's a bit difficult to cater for. There are so many time zones. It's very difficult to cater for that. But if I know that, we can absolutely work something out.
Well, I found out recently that my podcast has gone global. I am in many, many, many countries. So it's not just the United States that are hearing this. I'm in Europe and in Australia, and also I got a couple of listeners in Hawaii, which is so gosh, there was one thing I wanted to mention. This getting old stuff is killing me. I also want to tell the audience something that, and then you and I laughed about this, was if you see AEST in the time zone, when Kylie and I were trying to book this recording, she would use AEST, and I thought that it meant American Eastern Standard Time. And that's why this is why I now know the world thinks poorly of Americans, because we only think about ourselves. AEST is Australian Eastern Time Zone, right?
That's right. And we also have, because we have Australian Eastern Standard Time, AEST. Standard Time. Yep. And we have AEDST, Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Yeah. So we've finished that now. And then there's a whole heap of others. So I'm glad we cleared that up.
I just want to let them know, if they see the A before the EST, it doesn't mean American.
That was
my ignorance. So Kylie, I want to thank you so much for joining me from halfway around the world. One day, one of my sons studied in Australia, and he was there for almost a year. And I would love to come visit Australia someday. So thank you so much.
Make sure you let me know when you're here.
I will. I absolutely will. I gotta get there first, but thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for that discount to my audience. Maybe we'll have you back someday in a couple of months. All right.
Would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Have a good one. Thanks. Once again, thank you so much for listening. This show is produced by me, and I have no sponsors, and I have nobody helping me do this. It is coming from my heart and my passion. The only thing that I ask from you is a review. If your platform allows you to give the podcast a review, like Apple or Spotify, please give me a review. It takes 1 minute to go down and click on a star. There's usually 1 through 5 stars. Give me what number of stars you think I deserve, and in the little box, just type out what you think about the podcast. Anything that you either don't like or would you like to hear, or just a general synopsis of what the next person who might be looking to listen. It would help my podcast so much just to get more reviews on there. I appreciate it again, and we will talk to you at the next episode. Ciao.